We began our discussion about AI last week. We were talking about how do we as Christians, how do we interact with the AI? What do we think about it? Is this God's will or not? Last week, we looked at a video that brought up examples of where AI was being used around the world in different faith capacities, which I think was new to all of us. And brought up quite a good discussion. And we had so much discussion that we decided we should do it again this week. And so this week, I think we have a few different articles, some that Pastor Marina has brought in. I brought in a few. And so we'll talk about some of the different perspectives on AI and faith. And Marina, do you want to dump us off? Yeah.
We talked about that last week. That's why this one was put away. This article talks about how humanities can help technology. That's the title of
what the humanities can offer in this technological moment.
And the editorial that they did, this is a Christian Century magazine, and the editorial talks directly about artificial intelligence needs theology. And it needs theology because they don't know how to answer the difficult questions that AI raises. OpenAI has, this is the title, OpenAI releases plan to prevent a robot apocalypse. This was the headline in one of the newspapers that does technology. But their plan is to create a preparedness team, and that team would answer some of the questions which are now front and center. Preventing machine goals from overriding human goals, preventing the biases which are presently in the AI that's being run, the algorithms apparently somehow manage to go in the opposite direction of those who are Black, poor.
Yeah. Because they're sucking in all the information from the internet, and all of that stuff, right? All those biases are out there.
Yeah. And a lot of the studies that they have on this are already biased. So what they get is more bias. And
more bias.
They don't know how to take it out.
Right.
There's the head of this new team is from MIT, and his name is Alexander Madry. And he is monitoring systems because of the potential of catastrophic events involving AI, such as creating and deploying biological weapons, sabotaging an economic sector, or hacking into military systems.
All of that's happening right now.
The primary work of the preparedness team is to prevent exploitation of the technology by the people who are running it. So
what I hear in that, right, is that the technology in itself is not evil. However,
it's only as good as
the people who are using it,
right,
can use it for evil, and it doesn't have the intelligence to resist.
Well, and the bias is baked into the data that's existing. So there has to be an intentional effort to overcome that.
But the machines themselves, the problem is, and he says it later, he says it in the other article, part of the article, is evil. They don't know how to describe evil. What is evil? That if you want to get it into a loop where it goes continually and does nothing, which is dangerous for computers, just ask them that question, because for them, it's
impossible to answer.
Unanswerable. So consequently, what they're suggesting is that both philosophers and theologians
Mhm.
be part of that team to help them draw the lines that are blurred between human agency and computer generated agency. So in other words, when it comes to values like ethics, truth, meaning, and agency, they don't, you ask them what is truth again.
And is
The big questions that go,
Right. Which is what we saw last week too in the video. Remember when the woman asked, is there heaven? And,
yeah,
and the robot answered it with a Bible verse.
yeah, yeah. And they can quote the Bible.
Yes.
They can give you any number of Bible verses.
But I can't answer the big question.
Yeah. Anyway, it's not that we, the theologians, know more than others, but it is that we know differently. And that's the point that the machine, and I keep referring to computers as machines, because
Yeah.
they are.
Yep.
I mean, I know that they do all these things, but last week they continually referred to the machine doesn't have a soul.
Right.
Okay. The soul is
Right.
where you get truth and good and evil and the kinds of things that say, okay, that is something I don't touch. That is something that's, not. I want to fight my enemy. Here's the biological weapon to do it. You can kill them, kill all the people, and then you won't have to worry about which one's the enemy. Just wipe them all out.
Right.
So
AI is
that's basically what it is.
looking for theologians to help build that kind
Be
of
part of this preparedness team.
to build in the curbs,
The boundaries.
the boundaries
Yes,
for the
boundaries.
okay. And
Because they have no morals.
right. It's a machine running an algorithm.
Well, and they showed that with the chat bot that they have developed, and it's got a dark side. And any chat bot that's developed is going to have the dark side of the person that's developing it.
Right.
And if there is a sinless person out there that they can develop all the AI that there is, that'll be fine. But there isn't.
Right.
Yeah, I'm so far behind. I go back 30 years or more. And the only thing I ever really learned about technology was garbage in, garbage out.
Uh-huh.
And is that still true today? Yes, we're talking about machines and what they can do.
Yeah.
But people are inventing these machines. Have we gone
People
so,
are
and I'm
right.
asking this question realistically.
Yeah.
Have we gone so far now that people are no longer in charge of these machines? That's my question.
I think not yet, but we're on the way.
If they've, in some cases, like this morning, so you can tell them about that. In some cases, they are already running things and people are not involved.
Government's getting involved with it. They're interfering with robocalls.
Oh.
Well, now they are, thank goodness. But that was one of the.
They finally woke up that so many people are being ripped off
Yeah.
by these robocall, and they claim the 911 services are really getting messed up. You never thought of
They're being interfered with.
that. I mean, their phones get tied up with that garbage.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. So I think, Louise, I think you raise a good point about sort of taking a step back, that when we're talking about AI, what exactly are we talking about? Right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really very old fashioned. I'm so steeped in the humanities that I have a difficult time understanding it.
Yeah.
When I went to college, I had a choice of taking two classes, 6 credits in either religion or philosophy. Well, that's been gone now for what, 30 years? I don't even know if they offer religion and philosophy in most schools. Then we got the urge to catch up with China and Japan and every other country
Mhm.
and tried to get more and more people into math, science,
Right.
and so on. And that worked. We came forward in technology, but in doing so, we lost all of the foundation that I believe you're talking about theology. Well, I'm not a theologian. I'm talking about humanities, but it's the same thing.
Yes.
It's a human piece.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
How we care for each other, what we think, how we
Yeah.
look at life, how we look at each other.
Yeah.
And that's gone.
Yeah.
So I mean, the only solution I see to any of this is to rebuild that. But in order to rebuild that foundation, you'd have to have people who understand that it's necessary. And I don't see that that's anywhere in government or in technology these days. And that's pretty depressing to me.
Is that on the same order as a computer? Now, computers only do what you and I program in.
That was
If
what I
the human
understood.
doesn't put it in, it has nothing to work with. Now, does this AI work that way, or does it steal the brain itself?
So the AI can actually learn, right? So the difference between when I was programming 30 years ago, where you said, okay, these are the inputs, this is the process, this is what's going to come out. Like that's how programming worked when I was programming. Artificial intelligence, these are computer programs, but they learn, so they can go get information and then adjust the way that they look at information. So they start as a computer program, but that computer program then learns by getting information and making adjustments. And they typically refer to it as these algorithms. So they're
Right.
ways of looking at things. So I think one of the big differences, right, is that AI can learn and respond. It's still not, as Pastor Marina is pointing out, it's still not a person. But if you're talking on the phone and you call into a help desk and you end up with an AI bot, you may or may not know whether you're talking to a human being,
I don't. know.
because they can answer basic questions.
Yes,
And a lot of
they can also take other voices, like the
Right.
That's what
actors'
they were saying on
voices,
there
Yeah.
this morning, that they
the
can
president's voice.
imitate famous people's voices,
Mhm.
and people will buy in on that.
Yeah,
Thinking
because
that they're
imagine,
talking too.
right? Think of all the stuff that's on the internet,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
I mean, there are movies, there are news clips, there are, all kinds of, our videos are out on the internet. So
AI absorbs.
AI can go get that stuff.
That's where they get their information.
Right, right. Now, there are upsides, right? So,
Yeah.
I found two different articles from Living Lutheran. One was from 2021 and one was from 2023. And I feel like these take almost opposite approaches to AI. The one in 2023 is written by a young man who used to work for Google, who now does technology with the church. And he's written at least a couple books that I really, really like. Because one of the areas where he's really focusing his attention is on how do we do hybrid church? How do we use the online tools to connect with people? So I really like him. And so what he says is, as our culture grapples with social, political, and economic questions posed by the rapid adoption of artificial intelligence, the church is called into a conversation on adaptation and resilience. So he says, we need to have a role. The church needs to have a role in this. And so he goes on to say, in many ways, AI will be an asset. These tools will allow resource-constrained ministries to communicate, teach, and preach more effectively. They provide viable solutions to technical challenges. So I love that, right? It's what allows not necessarily AI right now, but we have technology that allows us to connect with the folks who are at home.
Which is great.
Yeah. So he says, however, AI tools produce an experience of endless personalization that stands in contrast to the Lutheran priority of community and liturgy, so order. As these tools advance, churches must initiate a conversation that incorporates both pragmatic and theological considerations. So, I mean, along the same lines, right?
Mhm.
That so the AI is seeking theological advice. We as churches can also engage in the conversation about AI with our lens of community and theology, which I think is really, really neat. It says, though we can't predict with certainty how AI will reshape the church, our task is clear. Church leaders must assume an active role in exploring this transformative technology rather than being passive observers of its development. So he's also talking about where we don't have enough pastors, we don't have enough church workers. So is AI something that could be used to, say, create a Bible study that lay leadership could use? Because I think we talked last week about all of the resources that AI could access.
And it showed in the video how they had done some of that.
And so he points out that we need to use AI as our assistant and continue to be aware
How
of
can you be
community.
there and be here? Technology, that's how.
Stephanie's magic.
And in the car.
She can be everywhere. It was the AI version of Stephanie that we were interacting with before.
She did.
So,
Well, there is
yeah,
one additional from what you
yeah,
guys. And it's in here and I can't point to exactly where it said it, but there's two different kinds that we're dealing with when it comes to computers and technology. And one kind is a fact gathering kind. Other kind is a generative kind, which means it grows and learns and uses the stuff.
That's the part
That's the tricky part. The
Yeah.
other one that's gathering the information and that works with the information and finds ways to share the information is a different. They're they're not separate.
I think one's a front end and one's a back end. So
Okay.
gathering the information, right, creates the repository
Right.
that the thing that goes out and makes decisions can use.
Yes.
So I shouldn't blame you and say, well, when you were a programmer, you did your job too well, and what happened, huh?
Yeah. I should.
And even that back end has some challenges because we know that it goes and gathers things without necessarily paying attention to things like privacy, copyright, intellectual property, all of those kinds of things that
Yeah.
protect
Hello,
the people that protect the creators of this content. It just goes out and looks it. So, there's a different kind of problem on the back end, which is taking advantage of people's gifts and not compensating them for it.
Yeah.
So that's
That is
problematic
for that one.
too.
Yeah, that's true. Well, and that's part of what this one is doing. It's not growing, the one that we were talking about
Yeah.
this morning. But it's gathered information for its product and it's going to sell you that information. It doesn't care what you're saying. It'll find ways around your language, et cetera, to continue the conversation, whether it's, some actor or whether
Right.
it's, whatever it is. It's like, okay, well, this will convince them. So that's why the government apparently is getting,
Yeah.
because they think, that really is.
You got to hope that the public doesn't get too dependent on them.
Right.
That's,
Making their
that's
decisions.
another.
So I think that is a great point, Bob, because I think one of the things that we can do as a church all the time is encourage people to ask questions and think for themselves, right? Because I think for too long, the church encouraged people not to ask
Ask
questions
Yeah.
and not. to
That's
think
how
for
I was
themselves.
raised. I was raised
Yep.
in the Catholic tradition where every question I asked was questioned. Like, why is she doing that? And they all got together and gave me an answer to everything I said after that. It's a mystery.
Well,
No
and
matter
so,
what I said. it's
so
a mystery.
imagine how harmful that is in this environment where something's going to
Yeah.
feed you whatever it thinks you'll buy
Yeah.
in whatever way it thinks you'll buy it. People who have been encouraged to not ask questions. Okay, so we know we have these church people who don't ask questions. So we're going to serve them up something that has a Bible reason and maybe the voice of a religious leader or someone that they trust, and we know they won't question it. Right? I mean, so I think that's part of it too, is we
Lost
as the
prophets.
church can encourage people to ask questions and not just accept things. And God for the entirety of humanity, God has encouraged people to ask questions. It's just the church sometimes has rather had people not ask
Got it.
questions because,
They have their way of doing things.
it's power and control.
And money and
We're in charge.
Yeah.
We're in charge.
Yeah,
And they were.
yeah.
That's why I never read a Bible, because we will tell you what it says. That was the, okay.
Then you got to hope that they don't build some kind of fail-safe in on them, that hackers can't get in and have fun.
I've been thinking about all of the movies, all of the apocalyptic movies that have been made with exactly that as the premise, which is, the robots, the machine takes over the world and there's no way to shut it down. Right?
That's what's out there. That's part of the scary.
Yeah. Yeah. So did you know that there is a group called AI and Faith? It's a nonprofit that is that is a group of computer enthusiasts and theologians and other people who worry about moral challenges to AI. So that's the other article that I found was from, we must have lost me again, was from 2021. So the first article is by Ryan Panzer, Panzer. And like I said, he has a couple books that I really like. And the other one is by Ted Peters, who is a much better known theologian.
Creation stuff.
He does a lot of theology. And so in 2021, he has an article on enhanced intelligence and sanctification. And what he says is AI isn't actually intelligent. No one has yet produced artificial general intelligence, a program capable of performing any task the human brain can perform. When you plug in a powerful computer, you don't mistake it for an intelligent person. So then he goes on and he says, is AI moral or immoral? Neither. Intelligence is necessary, but not sufficient for moral behavior. Oh, but yeah.
We must ready for her if she wants.
And you wouldn't even be in the camera if you sit in that chair. Must add consciousness followed by deliberation, decision, and action. No AI machine can be considered moral or immoral in this customary sense. We must treat any machine with an AI label to be the moral responsibility of the designer, the manufacturer, or the operator. Like you guys are saying. Yeah, it really is. But yeah, so he says, to think through the ethical conundrums of AI technology, Ted Peters became one of the founding members of AI and Faith. And so the website is AIAND faith.org.
Caps?
It doesn't matter. Where computer enthusiasts around the world conscientiously sort out the moral challenges. So I think that's kind of cool.
So now you want us to ask questions, so I have.
Yeah.
Lutheran Church doing about this. Do they have any say in any of this? Have they joined any group?
So I don't know that the ELCA as a church body has done that. But both of these people, both of these articles are written by leaders in the ELCA, in the Lutheran Church. And so they are, on an individual basis.
They're active.
And active in the technology and in educating people and churches on what it is and what we can or should be doing about it. Because I think it would be hard for the ELCA as an organization to be engaged, much easier because, it's running by committee,
Yeah.
right? Much easier for individuals to be involved in these.
Well, I was thinking in terms of appointing or requesting members to get involved to bring the information back.
Well, Living Lutheran is the magazine of the ELCA, and it has had quite a few articles on this. So I think that's a way that the ELCA brings it up for people to be aware of. Sometimes the ELCA issues what's called social statements, and those are typically something that takes, I don't know,
Years,
several years,
Yes.
probably at least 3 years.
at least.
Because they have to go through a churchwide assembly to be,
That's the trouble with any large group.
yeah. Yeah. So, I would not be surprised if at the next churchwide assembly that it was brought forward as something that the church needs to be looking at theologically. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yes, I was encouraged to find, the articles that I did. And like I said, with very different perspectives on AI. I think both of them, are sort of trust but verify. Ted Peters is of a much older generation than Ryan Panzer. And so they're kind of coming at it from different perspectives, and I really like that. Because, Ryan says, look, we can use this as the church to overcome some of the challenges that we face right now, but we have to be careful. And Ted Peters says, there are bigger things that are going on. We need to be actively involved in helping to sort out the moral considerations as this grows. And
So after the fact.
Yeah.
Right.
yeah,
Ted Peters was involved ages ago, it has been a long time, in the whole creationist. When they came out and said, okay, it's 7 days, everything happened in those, and all these numbers are correct. So therefore,
Earth
is how it worked.
10,000 years old.
so Big Bang and all that other stuff out with Ted Peters says, wait, just a minute. And he's got a couple of good books
yeah,
about that
yeah,
creation itself and how we look at all of it.
yeah. He has a lot of books. But-
Yes, he does. You're a good guy.
Yep. So I know that we've only really scratched the surface on this whole AI thing. What other questions or comments do you have? 'Cause it's already 9:30.
I just want to
Yeah.
make sure to get that the Herculaneum thing gets.
Oh, right,
recorded.
right. So talk again about that.
So
that is-
I've read several articles this week about these papyrus scrolls that they found in Herculaneum, and they've been scorched by the volcanic eruption of 79 AD. And it was a library or something like that. So they had hundreds of papyrus scrolls, and to the naked eye, they look like black logs.
Right.
They're just black. You can't see any
Anything. Yeah.
any ink. And if, of course, if you open it, they tried it in the 1800s when they were first discovered, they just disintegrate into ash.
Yeah.
So what they've done is just preserve them, and now using X-ray microscopes and AI, they can take pictures of the layers, the individual layers, and then the AI can distinguish the black of the papyrus versus the black of the
Yeah.
ink.
Yeah.
And then they can
Mm.
decipher it, and they can make it black on white so you can read it. And so they've been able so far to decode the top half of these pages, and they're still trying to figure out how to get to the bottom half. So it's like reading a novel and you can only read the
First
top half,
paragraph.
top half of each page, and you don't really get the whole thing. So, but the one that they've started decoding so far is some philosophical text that no one has ever seen, no living person has ever seen. So it's
that's
incredible
so
to think about what else might be in those black
Yeah.
logs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That are
Part of the
absolutely-
library.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
So definitely a blessing of AI.
Yes.
Because human beings would not, it would take forever.
You
and
could
it-
never, you couldn't, it just looks
Yeah.
black.
How would you possibly
You
be
wouldn't
able to
even
read
think
it?
there was
Yeah.
anything there, looking at it.
Right. It's ash. What would you?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that
And-
is so
and that's
cool.
Basically paper, you know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yeah. Mine is totally different. Not AI at all. Do dogs and cats go to heaven?
I would like to propose that for the season of Lent,
Mm.
that we use this time, this questioning time,
Mhm.
to go through Luther's Small Catechism, which poses lots and lots and lots of questions. And what I've discovered in the past is that when we explore the questions that are in Luther's Small Catechism as adults, the conversation is way more fun